which is the longer term. Kasi kung wala kang baril, edi syempre makapag-usap ka. Hirap naman yung kaharap mo may baril. No, paano ka mag-peace talks? Tapos, kung may peace na, kahit sa medium term, 3 to 5 years to 10 years, makapagplano ka sa pag-protect ng environment, sa edukasyon, mga longer term na, sa healthcare, sa agrarian, sa agriculture, sa globalization, sa trabaho, because you have a trajectory, because you're assured that you're not being disrupted by conflict and war. So tatlong D po yun. And I know it's long term, longer than maybe 6 years of one term for a president, pero kuntay-kuntay naman yung lahat. The building blocks to really reach the longer term human ecological development is that DDD. Disarmament, dismantling, dialogue, peace process, and longer term human development, sustainable ecological development from Mindanao.
You're the principal author of Clean Water and then Ecological Management. Pero sa issue po ngayon, na masyadong height na ng issue of climate change, sa tingin niyo po ba, sa daming mga tao, and when you became a senator, mas maayos po ba natin mabuti yung awareness nito sa tao?
Yes, well, unang-una, yung sakunang Ondoy, Temeng, at itong mga katakot-takot na araw, taon-taon, no, na disasters na natatamaan ang Pilipinas. Ito po'y nagiging batayan na rin natin sa climate change na sinasabing vulnerable tayo. We're very vulnerable. I am one of the main conveners of the Philippine Imperative on Climate Change. What does this mean? That we've been really going around the country saying, we can talk employment, we can talk jobs, we can talk education, healthcare, globalization, governance, agriculture, food, all we want. But if we do not look at what is happening to our climate and to our environment, which are foundational, which are all about the elements of air and water and land and life support systems. How can you talk about jobs if you are now underwater like Ondoy? How can you talk about healthcare if ang una mong aatupagin ay rehabilitation at relocation dahil katakot-takot yung bagyo at disasters, flooding, etc. That is all part of the imperative of understanding climate change. I've gone around the country for the last 2 years, lecturing, engaging communities, local governments, schools, youth groups, church groups, on the imperative to understand this. And in a sense, we take the example of Vice President of the U.S., Al Gore, no? who's long talked about this as the inconvenient truth. At kailangan natin, hindi naman sa gaya-gaya, pero kailangan nating balikan na ang Pilipinas, no, ay isa sa 5 pinaka-vulnerable na bansa sa buong mundo sa climate change. Kahit na tayo'y kakarapot lang ang ating contribution sa carbon footprints at emission compared sa America, China, Europe, no? Na sobra-sobra yung energy use kasi ang lalaki ng mga ekonomiya nila. Pero tayo ang nagdudusa. Dahil tayo ay archipelago, nasa Pacific Islands, tayo ay nauunang hinahampas ng mga katakot-takot na sakuna. So in the end, climate change has to require consciousness change. And that's where my being a teacher comes in. Because my platform, ultimately, if you just reduce it to a coin, it's a flip side of E and E, education and environment. Because only when we can address education, consciousness raising in that real sense, and environment, will you be able to address economy, agriculture, health, and others. That is how important.
We're down na po sa last 2 questions. My first, what was in your mind nung hinamon nyo si Villar na magpa-lie detector?
Well, unang-una po, we are candidates. We are public officials. The first task of a public official is to be ready at any time to be accountable. Kung peke nga yung mga namatay yung kapatid niya, tapos ginamit pa niya sa ads niya, tapos itong mga nilulustay na perang para sa mga advertising, tapos itong mga issue sa C5 o itong stock exchange o ginamit ang posisyon ng pagka-Senate President o Speaker o Congressman para lumago ang kanyang mga pribado na mga interes sa business, ng mga negosyo niya. If you're running for the presidency especially, or Senate or Congress or Governor, Mayor, you're seeking the public trust. Diba? Nililigawan mo ang taong bayan at sinasabi mo, hinihingi ko na ipagkaloob niyo sa akin ang tiwala ninyo na maglingkod sa taong bayan. Pero sa pagkakandidato man lang, ay hindi ka nagsasabi ng totoo, nagsisinungaling ka, nagmi-misrepresent ka, at hindi transparent at accountable ang proseso, ang gawain ng ang pagkakampanya mo. What kind of leader will you be kung ikay sakaling na iluklok sa posisyon? So, we must, Villar and all of us, must be held accountable to the very basic elements. As a teacher, I always say the best teacher is a good example. Huwag kang magsinungaling, huwag kang magnakaw, huwag kang mandaraya. Diba? So it's the best example, simply being a teacher. And a lie detector test will just prove, have you been faithful to the very sacred sense of asking for the public trust as a candidate?
Last question po. Sa tingin niyo po, saan dapat mag-focus ang next administration sa issue ng bayan?
Unang-una, sinasabi ni Senator Noynoy, Senator Mar Rojas, kung walang korap, walang mahirap, yun din ang panawagan ng ating Liberal Party. So mag-uumpisa doon, hindi dahil lamang dahil korupsyon ay lagana at talamak na po ang katiwalian sa lipunan, kundi balikan natin social trust. To me, personally, again, as an educator, as an environmentalist, it is really about trust, pagtitiwala. Kasi that is why a leader is a leader. Dahil siya po ay pinaniniwalaan ng tao. I teach at the Asian Institute of Management. I always say you can teach management principles, how to run an organization, how to budget the resources of any agency or organization, how to be a good businessman, this, that, and the other, how to be a good manager of resources and people and organizations. But you cannot teach leadership. Because leadership is ultimately about who you are, pagkatao mo, karakter mo yan, integrity, honesty. And to me, that is really what it represents, this whole campaign of having Noynoy, Mar, the Liberal Party. So mag-umpisa po tayo na ibalik ang pagtitiwala sa taong bayan, sa kanilang mga leader. We start there. Then it goes into returning trust to our institutions and to our system of government so that we will have stability over the long term. That it is not dependent on just one personality of a leader, but the institutions, the rule of law, the stability of the processes, the predictability of our rules, will give confidence to businessmen, to investors, to the ordinary citizens that things work and are functional because there is a larger framework where no one is above that. Not a president, not a Senate president, a congressman, a governor. No one is above that. And that will give trust again. That we can and we will all work for what is the common good. So sa akin, talagang bago tayo magsalita o makipag-usap sa budget, sa resources, sa bureaucracy, even sa those closest to my heart, education, environment, health, Mindanao, peace, etc., agriculture, balikan muna natin, pamumunong malinis, mapagkatiwalaan, because you're a leader. People will follow a leader. And the following is based on trust. It's based on the faith in a leadership that is clean, that is honest, transparent, and accountable. Yun talaga ang meaning po na kung walang corrupt, walang mahirap.